learned what was variation and what was heredity. And we also learned what was inheritance, right? We learned about DNA, details of DNA.
Yes, deoxyribonucleic acid.
So we learned that DNA is made up of 4 bases.
Yes.
That is thymine,
Adenine,
Adenine.
thymine,
Cytosine,
cytosine,
guanine.
guanine.
Okay. So all those 4 bases is made up of. So take down that DNA is a double-stranded. The structure of DNA is double-stranded. It can be double-stranded, it can be linear, it can be circular. In that DNA का part नहीं होगा.
Okay.
I'll show you right now.
DNA.
Put a box here and write that DNA is double-stranded, linear, and circular. Okay. One homologous pair of character can have how many traits? Can have.
Alright.
You're right. I want you to give me an answer to this.
It can have 1 to 2 maximum, then
Minimum is 1.
1 and maximum is 2 to 3.
Maximum is 2.
It was really yesterday.
It will be more
It will
only
be-
exception, that is
Oh, okay.
population. Skin color is number, we reckon it as population. Okay.
Mm.
So that is population. Population is exception, which can have more than 2. More than 2 traits or 2 characters. Okay. alleles. These are the two forms of alleles of this particular gene. Okay? So what is the difference between a trait and an allele? What is the difference between a trait and an allele?
Trait shows like how tall is the how tall and short is a person is. And dominant and recessive allele it shows like both the characters. It talks about trait talks about one.
It is allele comes like this is one allele and this is one allele.
Yeah.
So how is it different from traits? That's what the question is. It's not different? Okay, take it out. And remember, we represent tall with capital T. Okay? And we represent dwarf with small t. Okay? And why don't we represent dwarf as D and tall as T? Why do we take same letters?
Because it's character of height, so height should be located tall and tall means big T is short means small T.
That is what why do we take T here instead of D here? T we take, that makes sense because it starts with T, so we take T. Okay, why don't we take T? Why don't we take D over here? Why do we take T?
Because we need the same character, okay, because we need the same trait.
Will trait, don't use that word called trait because trait is something which defines character. This is a trait and this is
We
a
need the same character pronoun.
Okay, so see, it's a very basic definition, it's a very basic reason actually that we'll get confused if we use two different letters. Right. So suppose if we represent T with tall and D with dwarf, we'll get confused. Right. That is why we use small t instead of this dwarf. Okay. So Mendel takes the first representation letter with the dominant allele. Dominant allele ka first letter is represented with that character. Okay. So this is represented with T and this is represented with small t. Okay. So tell me how many forms can we write this two pairs? Like this is a chromosome. Okay. So here T, I can write T, small t, big T, small t. That's all. No. In any other form can I write it? Maybe I can write it. I can write this as T and this as small t. Okay. This is small t and this is capital T. These are different chromosomes. See, in this chromosome T can be there. In this chromosome also T can be there. These are different chromosomes. Okay. 1 and 1 dash. Okay. So T can be there over here. T can be there over here also. Okay. And forget about this. T can dominant tallness can be here, dwarfness can be here. Okay. And this place, this is called as locus. Locus is nothing but location. Okay. So I told you yesterday that it must be of same structure and height and all, right? So if this is the locus of eye color or height, take it as height. Okay. One chromosome has locus of height over here. Okay. And if this chromosome has locus of height over here, tell me, will it form a pair of chromosome? Why?
Because it needs next to it.
Not next to it. The locus must be same.
Okay, this is locus.
Okay. So height, if height is present over here, only then it can form a pair. It can't form a pair if it's here. Okay.
लोकस में क्या रहता है बोली?
Locus में character होता है.
जीन रहता है.
Character gene से.
जीन मतलब अंदर में डीएनए रहता है.
Right. So as to that, I'll teach further and then you write. Okay. So this one you understood?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's this one is we understanding. Here, so we can write it in the form of capital T, capital T. We can write it in the form of small t, right? We can can write it in the form of capital T and small t. Okay. Small t and capital T doesn't make sense because see this and this is same. Okay. Here also it will be tall only. Here also it will be tall only. Okay. See, this is T and T, T and T. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, but T, T and T, T. This makes a huge difference, right? So we can write this in the form of, in these three forms, right? So here, these are homozygous chromosomes. Why are they called homozygous chromosomes? And this is what? What is this? This. What is that?
Homozygous chromosome. Heterozygous is chromosome.
Heterozygous chromosome. Okay. So why is it heterozygous? Because it has two different traits. Okay? Two different traits. This has similar traits. This has capital T, small t, small t. This represents dwarfism. Dwarf. Okay. If a plant, if a green plant has T and T, okay, then it is dwarf. That is very much short. We refer short as dwarf. Okay. And this is tall. Okay. And this representation, writing it as TT, small t, capital T, small t, this representation is called as genotype. Genotype is something which is present inside. We have to see it from microscope. Okay, only then it is seen. Microscope is used over here. Understood? And phenotype is something where we represent it by dwarf, tall, and all. This is phenotype. ಇದು ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ತಾನೆ? And this is something chromosomes which is present inside the body. We can't tell it as soon as you see the person, right? So that is why it is represented as phenotype. Phenotype is something morphology, morphological appearance. Okay, morphological appearance. And I asked you a question, what is the difference between trait and allele? Can you tell me with reference to genotype and phenotype, Radhima?
Okay. So, allele is phenotype and trait is genotype.
So, trait is referred to phenotype. Allele is something alternate forms of gene, right? So, gene is present inside the body. It is not seen outside, right? So, this is referred to genotype. You understood the difference? People get confused way too much in this question. This question.
Don't hold it.
Huh?
Don't hold it.
Trait is phenotype, allele is genotype.
Allele is tall.
So these are different forms of alleles. Different forms of alleles. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು T ಅಂತ ಬರೆದೆ. T and T.
Got it.
Okay? You understand? People get lots of doubts in this question. Don't get confused in that. Okay? Take it on. Okay. So now we have to know that in Mendelian's cross, okay? We just have an introduction on Mendelian's cross. So T and T, this represents tall, right? And T and T, this also represents tall. T and T, this represents dwarf. Right? So you read in this thing, sentence in NCERT, telling that T and T, this will be expressed in what you read is in heterozygous. Okay, heterozygous is nothing but dominant and recessive. Both are there in the character. This is dominant and recessive. So this is heterozygous, right? In heterozygous, dominant one only will be expressed.
Okay. Yeah.
This is dominant, so dominant only will be expressed.
Yes.
So dominant will found the progeny as T and T.
Filial.
Filial. F1 is referred as filial.
Oh, that's
Filial.
coming from a filial.
Okay, filial one generation. He found that the progeny or the offspring was T and T.
Yeah.
Okay, he did selfing between this only. Selfing in a sense TT into TT only he did.
Yeah.
Okay, so he found that TT found 4 different types of progeny. Okay, T and T, T mother, Edu, TT, and this TT. Okay, so these were the progeny. Fine. He found that there is no mediator height. See, that suppose if a plant tallness was taken as 2 meters now, or taken as 2 centimeters. 2 centimeters is very less. Okay, a tree was 6 feet tall. Okay, that is the dominant one. Okay, and a small dwarf tree of the same species. Okay, was suppose 2 centimeter. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, 2 centimeter. Okay, this is a hypothetical situation. Okay, just don't take it in reality. This one and this one, when he crossed between this, so he found that it is still tall. So what will be the height? Will it be of medium height, like middle between 6 feet and 2 feet, or will it be 2 feet? Sorry, 2 centimeter, 6 feet, or middle length. What will be? What will be the height of this? What is the height? I want in the reference to these 3.
6 feet.
6 feet. How?
Because T is dominant.
So what he told according to his experiments is this one will ultimately be tall because it has a dominant trait in it.
Yes.
Right? So it won't be of medium length. It won't be of medium length, and it won't be of 2 centimeter also because it is having a dominant trait.
Yes.
Right? So it will have 6 feet. Okay?
Got it.
Take it out. So now tell me, one plant of 1 meter and one plant of 10 centimeters were crossed. Okay, and they formed TT. Right? Take another case. 1 meter is tall plant. Okay, and the other plant was also 1 meter itself. So now tell me, when they crossed this both, TT was formed.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the height of this?
Tall.
Height in reference to 1 meter. Will it be 2 meters, or 1 meter, or 1.5 meter?
1 meter.
1 meter. Why is it not 2?
Because only one is dominant.
It will not add up. Okay, the height will be same.
Yeah.
Understood? Unlike humans, in humans if a tall and dwarf crossing will happen, then medium height also will be produced. Okay, but in case of Mendelian thing, it will not be produced. Okay, either tall or dwarf. No blending. We can say no blending. There is nothing but no. Means medium or median heights will not be produced. Okay, middle mixing thing around will not be there. Either the tall or either dwarf. No mediation things and all. Okay, understood. Fine. Take another question. If both, take it fast. TT, capital T, are the characters, then if tall plant is 1 meter and the dwarf plant is 10 centimeter, Then will TT, capital T, be 2 meters? What is the answer?
1 meter.
Question mark. 2 meters? Question mark. Answer is
1 meter.
right. No, 1 meter. Right, fast. Next question. In case of PT, capital T, small t. In case of capital T, small t, will it be medium height? Hmm?
Which plant is it?
The resulting plant.
No.
Right?
Because capital T is dominant and it will be T is dominant, so it will be pure
Right answer. No. According to Mendel, in this case, dominant trait will suppress the recessive trait. Height is equal to 1 meter. No? At this point, phenotype is the resultant of genotype. What does it mean by the sentence?
Meaning when it is T and the capital T and small t, capital T will be dominant, so it will be
Genotype is this thing, no?
yeah.
Right? So, because of this genes only, we're getting tall, dwarf. We can say if it is tall or dwarf based on this genes only, right?
Yes.
So, this genes is genotype. Okay, phenotype will be told with respect to genotypes. Okay? Understood?
Yeah.
Take it on. So those were the basic terminologies about this chapter, whatever we got yesterday and today. Okay. So here comes the main chapter. For that, you must know who is the father of genetics.
Gregor.
Gregor G. Mendel. This is a PYQ, so it's very important. Okay. Father of modern genetics. And he named the words genotype and phenotype. Genotype and phenotype, those words.
What is the father of modern genetics?
Modern genetics is William Dixon. Okay. So he named he's the father of modern genetics. Okay. And he named words called genotype and phenotype. He named them. And yesterday you had written in your book that Fleming, you had written something wrong. I circled in this chapter called linkage. This is a very important topic, okay? There are PYQs on this. Very, very important. Okay? And recombination. Drosophila. This is an insect. Okay. All these things were done by, these were experiments. Okay. These were done by Thomas Hunt Morgan. Taylor. Drosophila, common name, fruit fly.
हमारे फूड प्राइस का बड़ा होता है
See, suppose if you like keep these fruits or sugars and then just leave it there for 2 to 3 days.
मक्खी बड़ा वाला मक्खी आता है ना
हाँ,